I'm muting you all. Okay, so let's continue with the cucumber. Okay, so let me create a small test or like a feature file. See, new um, file, and let's say I'll give it as login dot feature. Okay, so just click on finish. My resource exists with a different case. Login dot feature. Oh, so it says basically there is already a feature called login. So let me create a new file with a different name. Let's say Amazon login dot feature. Okay, so let me delete everything and just copy the first step until this. Okay, so I'm just copying the feature and scenario. Okay, and I don't need a background, so I'll just say, let's say scenario, like feature is Amazon login functionalities, and the feature is like, let's say verifying the or yeah Amazon login. Okay, so I'm just saying like verifying the Amazon login and just say some steps. Let's say given user is on Amazon homepage or simply let's say login page. Okay, so let's say given user is on the Amazon login page, and then let's say and user enters let's say username and password. Okay, user enters username and password, then user should be logged into application. Okay, just a simple verification. Okay, so given like user is on the Amazon login page and like user enters the correct username and password. Okay, and probably we can say and clicks on login button. Okay, and user should see the uh, like user should be logged into application or user should see the success message. Okay, so let's say this is our scenario to log into the application and to check whether the user is able to log in or not with the help of this correct username and password. So let's think of this is our scenario. So now like what we'll do, like we'll execute this scenario from the like whatever the runner that we create, we can execute this scenario. Okay, and what will happen when you execute this scenario, like it is going to create a skeleton for us. Okay, so let's do that. And before even executing the scenario, so let me open our runner. Okay, and if you see like this is our runner, so here all we need to do is we can just give the name of the feature file. I'll say Amazon login.feature. Okay, so it will execute the Amazon login. So let's say in Amazon login, let's say we have multiple scenarios that are present. Let's say for example, if you take this parameterization script or let's say if you take this login or maybe this background scenario, see there are three scenarios here, like scenario one, this is second scenario, and this is third scenario. So when you give the background scenario dot feature in the runner, so it is going to execute all the features that all the scenarios that are present in that file. Let's say we only want to execute one of the feature, like we don't want to execute all these features, like I only want to execute one of the feature. So what we can do is we can use something called as tags. Okay, so we can give a tag to that specific scenario and we can execute that only that specific tag. Okay, for example, if you see here, see all we need to do is just say @ and let's say something smoke test. Okay, so this is something called as tagging. So we are tagging the scenario with @smoke test. So the name of the tag is smoke test that we are creating. So let's say for this, let's say I can give smoke test, okay, comma, let's say this is also used for regression. So I'll say regression test. So we can also do multiple tagging. So this scenario is tagged to smoke test, as well as this scenario is also tagged to regression test. Okay, so if you want to execute it, like let's say this one is only for regression. So I'll just say regression test like this. Okay, so now let's say if you want to execute all your smoke test cases. So what we need to do, we need to execute this test case as well as we need to execute this test case, and we don't need to execute this third scenario because we only want to execute whatever that is there for the smoke. So in these cases we can use this tagging, and first is we need to tag that specific scenario to whichever the tag that you want, and then when you are executing it, see here we need to add one more steps. So one is feature, one is glue, and the third one is the tags equal to this. Okay, in here we can give what tags that you want to execute. Okay, so for example, let's say I want to run the smoke test. So I can just give this smoke test over here. See, like this, @smoke test. So it's only going to execute all our smoke test, all the scenarios that are tagged to this smoke test. Okay, see, let's save it and run it and see. So what it needs to do, it needs to execute this and it needs to execute this. See, let's run this and see. So run as JUnit test. Okay, see, we gave Amazon login.feature, so it says there are no matching filters. None of the features at this file match the filter. So we should not give Amazon login, we should give background scenario.feature, because that is a file that we have our tags. See, let's run this and see now. Okay, see, it's executing that tag. So first one is done. See, second one is done. See, 2 scenarios have been executed and there are 8 steps. So that's what we did, 2 scenarios. See, this is one scenario and this is second scenario. So this is how we can do the tagging. Okay, and in case if we don't want to give the feature name, we can also do that. We can just give source/cucumber features. So what it will do is it will go and search all the files that are there in this feature, okay, or in that folder. So it will go and execute all the tests or all the scenarios that are tagged with smoke test. Okay, so it will go and search for all of them. So now let's say, see, in this Amazon login feature also, I'll tag it as @smoke test. Okay, so what it will do, it will execute 3 of the scenarios, 2 from the background scenario and 3rd from the smoke test or this scenario. Okay, so this we don't have the implementation, so it is just going to create the skeleton now. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just delete this. So I only want to execute this test and the other test. Okay, see, right click, run as JUnit test. So the first scenario and see the second scenario. So for the second scenario, as it does not have a any code that we implemented, so that's why it's giving a skeleton to us like this. Okay, so that's what it should do. Okay, as we don't have the implementation, when you first execute it, it needs to provide the implementation for us. Okay, so now see, let me copy this skeleton and create a file for the implementation. So what I'll do, I'll go to the steps and I'll right click, new class, and I'll say, let's say Amazon login, and click finish. Just we are creating a class and we'll implement those steps here. Okay, so import the given, So for whenever we create a new file, we have to do this. See, import the then and import the pending exception like this, all of them. Okay, so then we need to write the code to launch the application. Then here we have to write the code to enter the username and password, and then we need to write the code to close the application or verify whether the user is logged in or not to that application. So same thing, whatever that we did in the previous scenarios. So where we did is, see here, Amazon automation steps. We are just finding the elements here. Yeah, actually we haven't, we are just verifying the elements. So let's try to implement that. Okay, so I'll copy this, like launching the browser, and I'll paste it here. Okay, so it's asking us to create the WebDriver object. So I'll say WebDriver driver. Okay, and download the or import the WebDriver object. See, like this. Okay, then we are setting the property for the jar file. Okay, Chrome driver, then launching the Chrome driver and going to the amazon.com and thread.sleep of 3 seconds. Okay, so now even our test step says that user should be on the Amazon login page. So this is the home page. So to go on to the login page, we need to click on that login link. So let's even copy that code. Okay, see, this is the one. Okay, so this code will click on the login and we'll be on the login page like this. Okay, so then see for the next implementation. So here it says, or the step, like we need to implement it to enter the username, correct username and correct password, and click on the login button. So let's get that code. So driver dot, see, this is one for the email. Okay, dot send keys. Okay, and I need to give some email to it. So let's say something silly tester at sillytest.com. Okay, and then in the same way we need to do the password. Okay, see, password is this. Okay, this dot send keys. Let's say some password. Let's say tester. Okay, and then we want to click on the button. So yeah, this sign in button. Okay, dot click. Dot click. Okay, and just like let's keep a wait of thread.sleep of, let's say, 3000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds. Okay, and then here like we need to verify whether the user is logged in or not. Okay, so in case if you are giving the correct username and password, we need to go and check whether he is logged in or not. Okay, so let's just write a step in there like system util, that whether it's going, just want to check, or we can say just driver dot close. Okay, I'm not writing the code to actually verify it, but you can do it. Like we can find some text, find an element with the text or something and get that text and compare it. Okay, so this is a simple code like we for the login. So where is it? This is the one. So Amazon login dot feature. So now if I do a save, see, the warnings are gone because we have implemented it. And now when we execute it, like it's going to go and execute whatever the code that is present in there. Okay, so this one is treating it as a, see, like blue color means it is treating it as a keyword, but that's fine. Let's see if something happens. Let's see. So now see, if I execute, it will go open and it will launch login with the help of that username and password, and it will enter it. So let's try to execute it. See, I'll remove the tag from the other one. Okay, or add a new tag to this. Okay, instead of smoke test, I'll say login test. Okay, just a name to it. So just a tag, and pass this tag in our runner so that it will only execute that specific tag. See, login test. So now if I execute it, see, right click, run as JUnit test. So it's launching it, and it will enter whatever the username password that we gave. Looks like there is some error. Let's see what happened. So it was unable to find, navigate, link your account. We do have it. Okay, so it's not able to find this. Let's see why. Let's give 4 seconds. Maybe some synchronization issue. So let's run it again and see. Again the same thing. Buy.id, same thing. Okay, might be the property got changed or something happened, so it's not able to recognize that. So let's open the Firefox and see the property of it. Okay, and then I'll go to the Amazon.com and I'll open the Firebug. Okay, I think it got changed. See. Okay, see now if you see here, like the ID of this object is nav link account list. Okay, so before it was a different one. So looks like the Amazon changed their property of that object. See, whenever there is a property change, like our script will not recognize that object and it will fail. So we need to go and update it. So before it was nav-link-your account, but now it got changed to, see, nav-link-account list. Okay, so it looks like they changed it today. So let's go back and update this. See, this is what we need to do. In case if the property of the object changes, we need to go back to the script and we need to update it. Otherwise it will not work. Okay, so let's try to run it again. See, right click, run as JUnit test. See, now it clicked it. Okay, so whenever you have any issues like the application is not recognizing, make sure the object property is same or it didn't get changed. Okay, see, one scenario got executed and there are 3 steps and it took 32 milliseconds for executing it. Okay, and it executed. So now if you go back and see, so the code has been executed. See, in the results you'll see your scenario. See, all are passed. Okay, so now like what we did, we tested with one user called sillytester@sillytest.com. Okay, let's say you need to test the login functionality with a different set of data. So now we tested it with sillytester. Let's say we need to test it with auto tester. Okay, or let's say manager. So I'll say manager@sillytest.com. Okay, so now what we need to do, in case if you want to change the username and the password, okay, we need to go back and we need to update our code from here. Okay, so we need to come to the code, we need to check where our code is, in which class that code is, and then we need to update that variable. So now it is only 10 lines of code, we can easily come and update it. Okay, but let's say if you have hundreds of lines of code that you need to, or that you created, like thousands of lines of code that you created, So it's not easy for us to go and search where our code is, and every time we cannot go and update it. If it is 1 or 2 parameters, we can just directly go and update easily. But let's say if you have some 100 values that you need to change, and like 100 places or 100 like thousands of lines of code is there, so it will not be easy. So instead what we need to do is we need to do some parameterization in our script. Okay, so instead of going and updating in the code, like we can pass it from our scenario itself. Okay, so if it is in the code, what we need to do is, if whenever you want to update it, like a technical person should go and update. Technical in the sense, the person whoever knows what the code is doing it, or how the code works, like automation testers. So we are the ones who will write the code, so we need to go and update it. But let's say the scripts, let's say, are being executed by a manual tester or a business person, so they cannot go and update the code and make changes. So instead what we can do is we can parameterize in the scenario itself. Okay, so here itself, instead of saying correct username and password, we can say, see, correct username, let's say something, manager at selitest.com. okay, and password, see something, let's say password. Okay, and clicks on the login button. See, we can pass it directly from here also. Okay, so now what will happen, like you don't need to go and update your code like whenever you want to change the value. You can directly come to the scenario and you can change it here. So now you can do it manager. Next time, salesman at selitest.com, something like that. So we can directly change it from our script itself. This is what is called as like parameterization. Okay, or passing the parameters from the scenario itself. Okay, so now once you save it, see it says this implementation is not there, because see before it was a different one. We created a script or implemented a step which is different. So now again we change the steps, so this will not work. So we need to again implement this specific step. Okay, so how to do that is, see, all we need to do is again run it, which will create the skeleton. See, right click, run as JUnit test. So what are the steps that are already implemented, it's going to execute it, and what are the steps it does not have an implementation, it will create the skeleton for us. Okay, see, the execution has been done, and what it did, see, the first step it executed because it needs to launch it, and then the second step got failed, or second step created a skeleton, see like this, and third step got failed because we didn't click on the login. We are still here itself, and when it is trying to enter the username and password, which is not there, so that's why it got failed. So now what we need to do is, see, we need to implement this specific step. So let me copy this, and I'll go to the same class, whichever the one that we had, and add it here. See, in the class I'll add it like this. Okay, and let me try to implement that. And if you see the method, see, void enter username and password and clicks on the login button, and you have two parameters here, see, string arg1 and string arg2. So for the previous one, see, we didn't have anything like just a open and close bracket because there are no parameters that you are passing it. Okay, so in case if you have something like this, like in case if you give anything in the double quotes, like you need to provide it in the double quotes, then only it will think that it's a parameter. So this parameter will be passed as string 1 or the first argument. Then the next one will be the second argument. And also if you see here, see, user enters correct like some specific like character, see this one. This is what the parameterization it treats as, and enters password this and clicks on login button. So whatever that you give there will be passed into argument 1 and argument 2. We can also change the names for those arguments, like instead of arg1 I can say email, instead of arg2 I can say password or PW or whatever it is. Okay, so now inside we can use it. See, something like this. I'll just copy this because it's the same username and password that you are entering it. So instead of hard coding the value, I'll pass this email. See, send keys email. In the same way, the second code, let me copy everything. So now see, password. Instead of tester, I'll pass password like this. Okay, so the implementation is done. Okay, and then okay, so entering the username, password, and clicking on the login. So let's come back here and try to execute it now. So now we have salesman@sellitest.com and the password is password. So we should be able to see that on the screen. See, so right click, run as JUnit test. See, salesman@sellitest.com. See, salesman@sellitest.com. Let's say again next time you want to run with a different set of data. We don't need to make any changes in the code. Okay, all we need to do is see, instead of Sellitest salesman, I'll give manager. Okay, and I can change the password also. See, right click, run as JUnit test. Now it will take manager at whatever.com. See, manager@sellitest.com. Okay, so that's what is parameterization that we can do in the Cucumber. Okay, so with this what will happen is even the non-technical persons who can read and understand what the scenario is, they can go and update the data. So they don't need to wait for the automation testers or the technical people to update our scenarios or the scripts. They can directly come and they can make modifications to the data and execute it. That's what the benefit of these parameters or like parameterization in Cucumber. Okay, so this is how we can create the test and we can execute it. Okay, and the next one is, let's say, see, so now what we are doing, every time we are, for every execution we are coming and we are changing the data. But let's say for example we want to give all the data at one time and we want to execute it. Okay, that means like let's say first I want to execute with manager@test.com. okay, and some password, let's say tester. Then I want to execute with sales@test.com -tester. Then some other user, let's say director@test.com and tester. That means we are testing the login functionality with 3 different sets of data. Or for example, let's say if you're purchasing a ticket, like every time you want to purchase the ticket with a different set of data from one destination to some different destination. So we might need to pass multiple values in there. So for that, like every time we don't want to do it. Like for every execution, I don't want to say it after first execution, I don't want to go and update the second data. After the second execution, I don't want to go and update the third data. Instead, what I want to do is I want to give all the data at one time and I want to execute the total scenario those many number of times. Okay, we can also do that. So this is like a simple parameterization. So next what we'll do is we'll pass all the data to our scripts at one time, and we are expecting that scenario should be executed 3 times or based on the number of data that you are passing in our scenario. Okay, so let's try to see how to do that. So that is called as scenario outline. Okay, so scenario outline, and we need to give some examples to it. See, this is what scenario outline is. Like this scenario outline can be used to execute the scenario multiple times with multiple sets of data. Okay, so every time with a different set of data, and the data can be provided at the same time. So at once we can give the data and we can execute it execute that test based on the number of sets of data that we are providing it. And see, scenario will be executed for each row of the data provided. So first time with first set of data, second time with second set, third time with third set of data. Okay, that is what is called as scenario outline. So let's try to create a scenario outline and see how it works. Okay, so we can use the same file itself, like we don't need to create one more new file. Let's use the same one. Okay, see, let's say scenario. Okay, so instead of scenario, we have to say scenario outline like this. Okay, so previously we were just giving scenario. So now, as this is like a parameterized test, we need to give the scenario outline. So let's say I'll give it as verifying login for different users. Okay, so verifying login for different users. So first is, let's say given, so let's say user is on. So I want to use the same step because I don't want to write it again. So I'll copy that. So given user is on Amazon login page. Okay, and then and let's say user enters. Okay, user enters in the course. You need to give the username like this and password colon this and colon and say password. Okay, and user enters username and password. Okay, and next then user should see probably, or user should log into the application, or user should see success message. Okay, users should see success message. So see, this is what the parameter is, username and the password. Instead of username, we can also say email also, because it takes an email. See, email and password. Okay, and I don't want to write this also again, so I'll just copy this step. Okay, so all we need to do is implement this specific second step, which is user enters email and password. Okay, so now like this is the same thing, we didn't do any change yet. So this is scenario and this is scenario outline, and we are just giving the name here. So now what we need to do is, whatever the sets of data that you want to provide, see, we need to give it here as examples like this. Okay, as examples, and here we need to start with the pipe. Okay, and press a space, so give email, press a space, pipe, space, either you can give a space or a tab just for our understanding, and say password like this. Okay, email and password. So the first row, okay, and our email is, let's say, manager at sillytest.com, space, pipe, space, and the password is, let's say, manager pw, and end it. Then again, see, pipe, let's say salesman at sillytest.com, pipe, okay, sales password, whatever the password is, and then finally, let's say director, director at sillytest.com. Okay, direct password, something like this. Okay, save it. So see, I'm passing 3 sets of data. So now what it will do is, when we implement this one, it will take that and it will execute that multiple times. Okay, so it's going to execute based on the number of data that you have it in here. Okay, see, let me change the tag from here to here, because I don't want to execute the first one, I only want to execute this. Okay, see, and for now I can comment it because I don't want to execute this. I don't want to execute this. Okay, I only want to execute this because it will give me the skeleton of it. See, right click, run as JUnit test from my runner. See, it implemented it. So let's take this and implement, copy it in our same file. Like we can, in this class itself, we can implement. So I'll copy this. Okay, and see, same thing. User enters string argument1, string argument2. Okay, and throws throwable. So same thing. So here there is no change. The code will be same as what we have it here. Okay, because same thing, like it's giving me argument. Okay, so no change. So I can just copy the same code here. Okay, and the first one I'll name it as email, and the second one I'll name it as password. Just the variable names. We can also use argument1, argument2 also. Just to be more meaningful, I'm giving email and password. Okay, see, no change, any more change here. Save it. Okay, so now if I run this, see, let me save this. So, and uncomment these two lines because now I want to execute it. Okay, see, let's run this and see. So let's go back to the runner, right click, run as JUnit test. Okay, so it logged in for the first time. So it will use the manager. See, salesman at sellitest.com. Then it will log in for the second time. Okay, see, director. Okay, so it didn't execute the manager. Let's see what happened. Oh, it did execute 3 times. See, 1, 2, and third time. Okay, so it executed 3 times actually. See the 3 scenarios. Okay, see, this is how we can do the scenario outline. Okay, so we didn't make any change. All we did is, instead of giving the scenario, we are giving it as scenario outline, and we passed all the data to it. Okay, so looks like the first time it didn't execute because it got failed. See, if you see here, we do have 3 executions here. First, second, and third. The manager, like director and the salesman got passed, but the manager got failed. Okay, and see, this is the error. So it got failed. So let's execute again and see. Okay, might be some like I said, like it's a synchronization issue. So okay, so Amazon runner, right click, run as JUnit test. Looks like it got failed again for the first time, I guess. Yeah, it sometimes happen. Even though it's the same code, because of the synchronization, see, one might work and the other might fail. So first step got failed, but other two are working. So let's try to increase the time and see. Okay, so I think the same thing happened. See, the first time it failed, second time and third time it got passed. Not sure why. Probably some sync issue. So We do have 4 seconds, but still it's failing for the first time. So let me give 5 seconds and see. Okay, but we don't need to check that, but like let's try it once. Somehow it failed the first time again. See, it's still here itself. I don't know why it's failing. The same code, we are executing it 3 times, but first time it's failing, 2 times it's working. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let me stop it. Okay, so I just closed the browser, so that's why even the third one failed. But like, see, this is how the scenario outline will work. Okay, so all we need to do is, instead of giving the scenario, if you want to parameterize it and execute based on the number of examples or the data that you are providing it, we need to give the scenario outline and we need to provide the examples in there with a pipe delimiter. So it's going to take it and it's going to execute it. Any questions or is it clear? Okay, so scenario outline, yeah. Okay, so with this, like, we are done with the Cucumber. So what are the topics that we have in Cucumber is this. Okay, so try to practice it and let me know if you have any questions. So what you guys can do is, for this scenario outline, you can try creating the code for purchasing a ticket. Okay, like you can use the demoaut.com and you can create or purchase a ticket, like pass all the fly to number of tickets, everything from here, and then try to create the purchase a ticket for different destinations, like fly from like IAD to somewhere, like let's say Chicago to somewhere, like that. So try to pass multiple sets of data and use that in your code and try to generate it, like create the code for that. Okay, so let's see, and I'll try to like send all this code, like whatever the code that we created in the class, like I'll try to send you guys, and but by looking at the video itself, try to practice it, like whatever that we covered, try to do the same thing in the by yourself. First 2 times, 3 times, try it looking at the video and write the code. Then once you are feel comfortable, stop the video and try to create it. Okay, I have a question, like sometimes the browser window does not open when executing, which it does. Generally it should open, but in case like if some process is not running, or like we never know, like the jar files and the Java, like sometimes it might be stuck somewhere. Okay, so it might not open the browser. Okay, so in those cases just stop it and re-execute. Okay, but it should open, but sometimes it does not, so we can't even see what the problem is. Okay, console is functioning. Okay, so basically it depends on the situation why it is not opening the browser. Okay, so sometimes it might do that, so all we need to do is just click on this terminate button on the console, see this terminate button, and try to re-execute it. Okay, and also like it depends on the browser also. Sometimes the browser, because these are different code that is being injected into the browser. Okay, so sometimes it might behave in a different way. Okay, so for like just try it on a different browser and see if it works. Okay, so this is about the Cucumber. Okay, so let's see. What else we have? Actually, we did not complete the parallel test and the listeners in the test ng, which we will do. Okay, so for Cucumber, like we are done. So what we'll do is, like in the next class, like I'll try to complete those whatever the test ng that we have missed, like we have skipped, like the parallel test execution and executing with the grid and the listeners. Okay, and then like we'll see there are some couple of topics that we need to know. Like there is one tool called Jenkins, and also we need to know something about the Maven also. So like in the next class, like we'll try to complete that. Okay, so let's stop it for today and try to practice it. Okay, so this is also very important. Like now most of the companies nowadays are using Cucumber itself, like Cucumber with JUnit, Cucumber with TestNG, or Cucumber with the Ruby. So try to practice, and this is it, like nothing more than this. If you know whatever that we covered in the class, that's more than enough for Cucumber, and there is nothing more than that. So all we need to do is write the scenario, know the tags, and try to generate the skeleton for those tags and implement it with whatever the language that we are using it. Okay, so try to practice as much as possible and let me know if you guys have any questions, and like we'll meet on Monday at 7 p.m. Okay, so bye for now and we'll see you on Monday.